this was all circulating around the base, that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappear.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave, and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand, and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody yells, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg, and I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Listening to The Confessionals, I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. That's theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the connection section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me. Just get a hold of me. Now, this week we have a 2-part show coming up. First off, we have Dan, and Dan comes on to share his Bigfoot experiences. He's never seen a Bigfoot, but he's had a lot of experiences that he knows they were around when he was around. And then we bring on Allan, and Allan had a Yucca Man encounter in Arizona. A Yucca Man is pretty much a Bigfoot that's in Arizona. And he has this experience where it actually attacked his pickup truck. So he comes on to share his experience, plus some other things. But before we get into it, I want to let everybody know we're going to be at Paracon at Pennhurst Asylum in Spring City, Pennsylvania on July 20th through the 21st. If you want to come out and meet me at the vendor's table, please feel free to go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, look at the live events section, and you can purchase tickets right from the website. So without any further delay, let's get to this week's show. Okay, tonight I have a good guest coming on. I have Dan, and Dan has some Bigfoot-like experiences. Let's just put it that way. Dan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, Tony. Thank you.
Awesome. So what do we got going on here? I mean, you have never really actually seen a Bigfoot, but you have had these experiences pretty close in time together. So why don't you just kind of walk us into what exactly you experienced and stuff, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. I think the first thing that we need that I want to establish is that the area where these 2 occurrences occurred has a long history of activity. I know you and a lot of your listeners, and including myself, we're all familiar with Sasquatch Chronicles. And before Sasquatch Chronicles ever came along, there was another website that I was part of where you could, share experiences. And so going back many, many years, there's, you've got, pre-Sasquatch Chronicle sites where there were a database of sightings in this area. If you go to the BFRO database, you'll see a ton of sighting occurrences, but what they like to classify as A and B, in this same area that I am about to speak of. So before I go into both experiences, it's important to understand that this area has a long history of occurrence. As a matter of fact, not that I put too much credence into the show, but the Finding Bigfoot show has been there not once, not twice, but 3 times. As a matter of fact, the very first episode of their very first season was in this area that I'm about to speak of.
Okay.
So the area is just, ripe with activity and has been for a while. So the first experience happened at a campground, and this was almost 1 year ago. This was August of 2017. And it was just your basic good old garden variety campground. And what happened was I was in my tent sleeping, and I was awakened around 4 a.m. And the reason why I remember that is because when I woke up, the first thing I did was look at my watch, and it said like 4:02 a.m. And I was awoken by a pack of howling coyotes, which is nothing new for that area. But here's where it gets really strange. About 3 to 4 seconds after the coyote started howling, this super low, super powerful, guttural roar comes out of nowhere and completely drowns out the coyotes. And it wasn't your typical kind of roar that you would hear out of, say, like a lion or a bear. The best way I can describe what I heard was this massive, overpowering, what sounded like someone saying Yahoo. And I didn't know this until I researched it, but apparently other people who have had a sighting or they've been in an area that has had a history of sightings have heard something similar in different parts of the country. Like I think I remember reading about some parts of Florida that have had activity where they heard this Yahoo type guttural roar.
Yeah.
Also West Virginia, Tennessee. But nonetheless, that's what I heard. And what was amazing was it was so powerful that I could feel it. I could feel it coming up through the ground, through my tent, into my sleeping bag. And it just, I could feel the vibrations, which tells me that this creature was not very far. I'd say at the most he was maybe 75, 100 yards away. And for a creature to produce those kind of vibrations, I mean, that had to be one massive creature, in my humble opinion. And another strange thing is when that Yahoo roar kind of took over the airwaves, if you will, the coyotes all of a sudden stopped, and this creature just kept on going. And I remember kind of chuckling in my tent, although it wasn't really a funny situation. I'm like, I'll be darned if that's not a Bigfoot nearby. And even though there's a major road running through that campground, but it's still a heavily wooded area. I mean, you just walk a couple hundred yards in each direction, you're in deep forest. And I couldn't help but think that this particular creature that night was closer to, if you want to call it, civilization than I realized.
Yeah. Now, when you said that it yelled, I mean, first of all, when we say Yahoo, I mean, are you legit saying it was like Yahoo, like that kind of howl?
Yeah, yes, but in a very low, very powerful, and kind of a slower manner also. Like, Yahoo! I know that's a horrible impression, but something along those lines.
Okay. I mean, and that's what I was looking for, because I wasn't quite sure exactly like the pitch and all that stuff. But I mean, I definitely have heard of the Yahoo with these people dealing with Bigfoot and things like that. And you said that how long did it carry out? I mean, you said it carried on did it carry on for a while, like doing it over and over again, or did it just carry it out for a long period?
It did it 3 times over the course of about, I guess all in all, it was about 2 minutes.
Okay. So about 2 minutes going over and over again. And did you ever hear any other sounds answering back or anything? Did it just sound like one animal?
It just sounded like the one. I didn't hear, I was actually, I got a little, I don't mind admitting it, I got a little frightened. And so I was like peeping my head out of the tent, looking towards the wooded area. And I kept thinking, I want to listen for heavy bipedal footsteps, which I never heard. And I didn't hear any replies. I didn't hear any wood knocks or anything like that. Just those 2 minutes worth of roaring Yahoo sounds.
That's interesting. I mean, I've definitely heard that and stuff. I wonder if it was anything to do with it kind of answering back to the coyotes, like almost like trying to threaten them or something. Did you get a sense that it was trying to communicate directly with them, or do you think it was trying to just vocalize over them?
I'm not quite sure. It was definitely vocalizing over them. And I can think of one of two, I guess, motivations to do that. One is just to play with them and say, hey, I'm nearby and I can pretty much tear you in half if I want to. Or the other would be that, I don't know, maybe this creature had its eye on a deer, because there's a lot of deer in that area, and it was establishing itself in the area as a way to tell the coyotes stay away from my food source. I don't know, maybe something along those lines.
You said that you felt the vibrations from that through the ground, right?
Yeah, I did, Tony. I really did. That was quite unnerving, because to feel that is to feel that your mind starts wondering how big and powerful is this thing, and it frightens you.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that, but I can't imagine the power that something would have to give in order for you to actually feel it through the ground. I'm assuming you felt it into your bones and almost, like you kind of just felt the whole thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I did. And I think I had 2 sleeping pads underneath me that night too.
Wow. So, I mean, I know you've looked into the topic, pretty extensively when it comes to Bigfoot. You've heard of the infrasound topic of these things, and people say that they feel the infrasound. Do you think that had anything to do with it, or do you think this was a straight up physical feeling that you were having from the vocalizations being that powerful?
I can't say for certain. I'm just not. I'm not expert enough to really conclude if it's one or the other. Plus, at the end of the day, no one really knows what this creature is. So, all we have is our opinions. It could have been either or. It could have been it could have been just its way of communicating that I'm in the area, and that's the powerful side effect you get. Or it was using infrasound. It could be either or. Yeah,
and I just when I hear people say that they felt something physically when it came to not like it actually touching them, but like either it was vocalizing or it was maybe sometimes people describe it as infrasound. I always wonder, are they both the same, or are they two different things that people are feeling? You know what I mean? Because like I don't know. Like I've never been exposed to infrasound. I don't know if it's something that when you feel it, like you physically feel it almost as if it's a rumbling or what. I don't know, but it's a very interesting thing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, the best way I can give an example is. Have you ever stood on the side of the road and you're a little bit too close and an 18-wheeler passes by and you can feel it going? Now you can feel the breeze too, but what I felt, I didn't feel any breeze. I just felt that vibration, just like when a vehicle drives by and you're standing close to the side of the road.
Being a truck driver, I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah.
Those things drive around me a lot.
I'm hear you. So the second experience happened just 30 days later in September of 2017. Once again, not far from where the campground I was at. And again, and I don't think this will be a bad thing, but just for the listeners, this area of North Georgia is where there's 80 miles of Appalachian Trail in North Georgia. And this specific area is, like I said, it's no secret because the Finding Bigfoot people have gone there. There's been a lot of encounters written, a history of encounters, documented in that area. But it's the CWMA, which is the Chattahoochee Wildlife Management Area of the Appalachian Trail. At this time, though, 30 days later, I was backpacking the Appalachian Trail. And this was a part of the trail that isn't far from the campground that I was staying at. And being that I wasn't staying at a campground, I was actually backpacking. This time I'm much deeper, in the woods. It was around 6:00 in the evening, and I was at a part of the trail. I wasn't at one of those lean-to shelters, but I was at kind of a clearing. And the ground was level, and you could see where other campers had camped there because there were fire rings. And there were a few other campers around as well. that had already decided to pitch there for the night. So I just went ahead and joined them. And so we were, me and the other campers that were there were standing around talking about some of the hiking we had done and so forth. And this particular area, like I said, it was a kind of a flat area. And there was a ridge, I'd say about 50 yards above that flat area where we were all camping. And shortly after we had, started talking and, making some meals and getting some campfires going, we hear this massive tree hit the ground. You could hear that snapping sound of the wood first, and then it hit the ground. And literally a few seconds after that tree had hit the ground, me and the other hikers that were around were standing around talking. What was that? And then what we heard, it wasn't just me, it was me and the other hikers. The best way I can describe this is what we heard was a very loud, deep, guttural grunt. I don't know if you've ever looked at documentaries on like the National Geographic Channel or studied some of Jane Goodall's works, but any documentation that's out there where you, I guess the best way to give an example would be a silverback gorilla grunt. It's very low, it's very guttural, it's and that's what we heard, and we just stood there, just completely shocked because you can tell a difference if you're experienced enough. You can tell a difference between deadfall and something being artificially toppled over, and then to hear that coupled with this gorilla-like grunt, we just froze right there in our spots, and everybody was wide-eyed, including myself, going, "What was that?" One guy even made a joke like, "I think that's a Sasquatch," and one guy started laughing. I didn't think it was very funny, but after that, nothing else happened though. So that's kind of like the good part is nothing. The rest of the night was peaceful. No grunts, no other sounds. But here is where the story gets really weird. This particular trail, or I should say this particular section of the trail, runs close to a U.S. Forest Service trail, gravel road, a U.S. Forest Service gravel road. And so one of my favorite things to do when I'm backpacking like that is to get up early, make a nice fire and a hot cup of coffee. So I got up that following morning pretty early, around 6:37 a.m., got my fire going, got some coffee going, and there's a side trail with blue blazes to signify that there's water nearby. So I start heading down this little side trail to pick up more water. And as I come out to this gravel road, which is used by the U.S. Forest Service, I see this white SUV that's completely blacked out, and it has a huge sticker of a, we'll call it a patty silhouette on the back of the truck. And I kind of chuckled, and I said, I thought to myself, here's somebody I can walk up to and have a conversation with, because I have a sticker of a patty silhouette on the back of my car. It was given to me as a joke, but nonetheless, because I'm a believer, I put that sticker on there. And when I saw that, I'm like, here's someone I can have a conversation with about Sasquatch. So I took it. I took what I was seeing as a friendly visit from a fellow Bigfoot enthusiast. So I casually walk up to say hello and see if there was anything we could talk about. As I approached the SUV, the driver rolled his window down, not all the way, about maybe a quarter down. And when I got up to the window, I immediately noticed something pretty odd. First, there were two guys in the SUV, and they weren't in law enforcement uniforms, but they were completely dressed in full tacked gear. They had two AR-15s on a gun rack in the back of the truck. And these guys were completely loaded down, like I said, with the tack dress, military-style boots, pistols at the ankles, black beanies. They had sunglasses, just completely decked out. And I playfully then said to the driver, I said, hey, I saw the sticker on the back of your vehicle. I have one of those stickers on the back of my window. And then as I said that, the second guy, the passenger guy, and he says, kind of in a stuttering manner, that's just a practical joke sticker from my girlfriend. And they both kind of gave me this dirty look and then stepped on the gas and just booked it out of there. Now, where the conspiratorial part comes into play, I just find it too coincidental that these two guys act very strangely and show up very, very early the next morning after a tree was toppled over, followed with a gorilla-like grunt. Just very, very odd. I can't say something else happened. I can't really honestly say they were there looking for that creature because it made itself known. I can't say that, but there's definitely something, what's that old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. I just find it way too coincidental that those guys happen to be in the same area after a Bigfoot occurrence, we'll call it. Their behavior was so odd. 90% of not all the time, but most of the time, you'll get a hello, maybe just a quick, conversation. And let's say that they were on some sort of, job to do that wasn't Bigfoot related. But, a professional would have said, listen, we want you to be safe. Have a good day. We need to move on so we can carry on with the tasks. None of that. Just some very strange, oh, my girlfriend gave me that sticker. Hit the gas. Let's get out of here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, do you think that maybe there was an embarrassment factor? Like, do you think that maybe they, like whoever said that his girlfriend gave it to him, do you think that maybe, he was more embarrassed that he had that sticker on his vehicle? That doesn't even make sense to me now that I'm saying it, just because, like, say my wife gave me, I don't know, a ballerina sticker for my car. I'm not going to put it on there. And if my wife put a ballerina on the back of my car, I'm going to take it off before I drive the car again. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
I mean,
I think it's I can only give an opinion. So in my humble opinion, it's one of two things. Either these guys were self-proclaimed hunters and maybe they just got lucky and happened to be in the area of an occurrence, but they didn't want to be known for hunting this creature, which doesn't make much sense because you got a big sticker on the back of your truck. Or so it's either two jokers who were just doing their own thing, or they were part of some sort of rogue operation that all of us are just unaware of.
Yeah, I mean, and you said they had two AR-15s?
Yeah, I mean, they were decked out, Tony. I mean, ankle pistols, two AR-15s, vests, sunglasses, the beanies, the military boots with the pants. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting because, I mean, I know there's guys that, that are Bigfoot researchers and, they go out decked out. I know J.C. Johnson was one of those guys when he was still with us. He would go out with, decked out in gear. But J.C. Johnson and most people who do go out decked out in gear, they're not going to act like that. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be like, well, yeah, I'm out here looking for the big fella. Have you seen him? We heard there was reports last night that there was something going on here. Oh, you're into Bigfoot too. They would talk about it. Like, cause I mean, it's not like every day you come across somebody else who's, into the topic like you are. So when you do, you talk about it, it's like finding a lost brother.
Right. I tend to lean towards my first opinion, which is I think these were just a couple of, and forgive the phrase, I think they were just a couple of jokers. I think they were guys who were looking for this creature on their own, and became defensive when but I think that they didn't want to be perceived as just a couple of guys who were out wanting to kill this thing. And so they got defensive and nervous when I asked them about it and just decided to take off. That's what I tend to lean towards. I can't help but think that if these were actual deep state government, whatever you want to call them, rogue elements that are sent in areas to control this creature, which I'm not quite sure about that, but if they do, I can't help but think they'd be a little bit smarter than what these two guys were.
Yeah, and putting a sticker on the back of the vehicle and things like that, unless they're trying to attract people like you to them so that, to strike up the conversations to find out who knows what and stuff. I mean, I'm just, trying to explore all avenues. I personally, I'd probably, if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say they're probably not government agents. But if they were government agents, or any kind of, deep state operative or whatever you want to call it, I don't care. If you think about it, if you're out there patrolling an area, just trying to, see what's going on, and there's campers in the area, maybe doing something like that attracts people's attention to you and gets people talking to you, and you find out things that you may not have known otherwise if you're just some guy that was dressed in a suit coming around asking people if they saw a monster in the woods. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, very strange.
Absolutely.
I mean, the tree, the tree that came down is followed with that gorilla-like grunt. That's just super strange enough. It is, but then you couple this together with these two guys, and I was very curious but very alarmed all at the same time.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I would have been thrown off too. I really would have been thrown off too because, like I said, I mean, if you go out and you come across another Bigfoot, I mean, when I'm driving down the road and I see somebody with a Bigfoot sticker on the back of their truck or something like that, and I'm in my work truck, I just wish I could get their attention and I don't know, like just, give them a thumbs up or something. I don't know, because it's like, wow, there's somebody else that's, totally digging the topic like I do, and it's just like like a brotherhood. And so for that to happen, it's just odd. It's just very odd.
Yeah, because I just had an experience where I do delivery on my job, and I was dropping off what I was delivering, and a young girl came up to me because I kept my car parked out front with the hazards flashing, and a young girl had come up to me as I'm walking back to my car, and she was all alone, and I guess she was headed back to her place of work, because it's a plant that I was making this delivery to. And she said, she goes, I dig your sticker. And I said, oh, I said, you do? She goes, yeah. She goes, now this woman is like 28, 30 years old. She goes, I saw a skunk ape when I was 17 in Florida. And to this day, it frightens me, but I don't tell people about it because I don't want to get made fun of. But I wanted to tell you because I saw you get out of your car and you've got a sticker on the back of your car. So that tells me that like when that just happened last week, and that just makes the behavior of these two guys that I saw last year even more odd. Why wouldn't you want to have a friendly conversation unless you were up to no good? It just it's a situation where I came out with more questions than answers.
I know we're rehashing it, but just talking out loud, I mean, just the answer that they gave you, oh, my girlfriend, it was a practical joke and my girlfriend was playing a joke on me. I mean, like if you just take that at face value, it's like, okay, fine. But why did you take it off the car? Like, why didn't you take it off your vehicle yet? I mean, like, I just don't understand that. I mean, because like, honestly, like if anybody put a sticker on my car that I didn't want on my car, I'm taking it off before I go driving around. That's just the way it is, You just get the old hair dryer out and a piece of plastic. You heat up the sticker and you scrape it off. No big deal. That's the way it works, It's a contradiction of behavior. It's like they're showing off that, hey, we're Bigfoot hunters, but if you ask me about it, I'm going to hit the gas pedal and speed off. Yeah. Yeah, it's very peculiar, but I mean, going back to your initial, how do we say it? Not encounters, but, just occurrences. Yeah. Like that happened within what, 30 days apart or 30
days.
Like that?
And right. And the distance between that campground and where I was on that trail is maybe 15, 20 miles. Not that much at all.
Okay. And that's what I was going to ask, how far apart they were, because, that's interesting. I mean, you hear these howls, and then you hear what would you call it, a tree snap, or would you call it just a pushing over a tree?
No, it definitely pushed it over. You could see the top end of the tree hit the ground too. But all that horrific snapping you hear as it's going down is what, when we heard it before it actually hit, all that snapping is, we could see what direction it was coming from, and then you could see the top of the tree hit the top of that ridge.
Was it a healthy tree, or was it a tree that was dead?
It was definitely healthy. I didn't go up there, but apparently a couple of guys the next, like a couple hours later, I was going to say the next day, but it wasn't that. A couple hours later, a couple of those other hikers had gone up there, and they came back and said that all the other trees surrounding this one were healthy. That tree looked healthy, and there was no deadfall to speak of. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, healthy trees just don't fall over. Was it just relatively, was the ground really wet maybe? Did it rain real hard and the roots uprooted?
No, that particular weekend, the weather was great, no rain. And one other hiker said, well, did you happen to see footprints? And they said they looked and they didn't see any, because at that time the ground was covered with a lot of leaves and pine straw.
All right. Well, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, a tree. I'm trying to think of any explanation and stuff just to cover all our bases and stuff. And I mean, you got a healthy tree. The ground's not wet. It comes tumbling down right in the same area that you hear these growls or these yahoos that kind of vibrated through the ground so powerfully. I've heard about the, people hearing these things say, Yahoo or whatever it is. And it's not an uncommon thing. And so with you saying that, and then on top of the power that was behind it, you start thinking like, okay, so what's out here that can actually make that sound, and do that? I can't think. I
think for me, what it does is it, and this is just my own humble opinion for me, but it completely validates what I experienced within 30 days of one another. Completely validates the activity that's been documented in that area. I can say with a straight face, clear conscience, however you want to say it, that if somebody else says, hey, this area has activity, I can say, yes, it does, because I've read about it and I've experienced it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of my patrons that's listening right now said, I'm not saying it was Bigfoot, but it was Bigfoot. So
that's a good way to put it. I mean, I didn't see it, but let me tell you something, it was Bigfoot.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it was, as far as I'm concerned, leans more towards Bigfoot than coyote or, even bear. I mean, I guess a bear could push over a tree. Yeah. But are there bears down there in Georgia? I don't know.
Yeah, black bear.
Okay, so I mean, we're not talking about big.
Not all, but most that you hear about or from like people see are they're more of the smaller brand of black bear. But they're out there, and you still have to be careful.
Yeah, but I'm saying like a black bear. They typically don't get big enough to be pushing over these big trees and stuff. I mean, how big was this tree again?
It was big. I don't know. What do you want to go? Like 30, 40 feet high, probably a foot and a half thick. I mean, it was a big one. Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one. So I don't know, man. Sounds like Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, apparently, let me say this. You know what? The one thing you can deduce from that second experience that I described, the one thing you can say is someone else also believes that that's a highly active area, obviously.
Right.
And they believe it so much to go in full military gear and ride around on gravel roads in an SUV with a big sticker of Patty on the back of their SUV.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. You're absolutely right. Well,
So I'm not the only one who believes that it's an active area. Obviously, I just it's such a head scratcher for me though, Tony, to have that occurrence and then early and look at the time of the day, 6:30 in the morning. Clearly, these guys were looking to be in an area that they knew there were probably hikers, which there were, but they wanted to get the early start, the early jump before everybody started getting awake, and so that they wouldn't be spotted or something. That's the way I took it.
well, I mean, I'll tell you, man, it's just a definitely very odd experience all the way around. I mean, you take that with the idea of, the tree falling down the night before and then these guys are popping up and stuff. It's just odd. But man, definitely odd. But I'll tell you what, Dan, thanks for coming on and sharing these experiences with us.
Thank you, Tony. I love your show. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. I'll always be listening, and God bless.
I had I call them my Marine Corps parents. Well, Dad had gotten in a car accident and was killed. They heard about it, and so I got on a plane, and it's a beautiful place. It was about 40 minutes outside of Richmond. It was a beautiful horse property. I think it was almost 100 acres, so it was huge. And they had horse trails cut all over the place on it. And I got there, and this cabin, it was built back in the 40s, and it was a 2-story cabin. We went to bed, and they had just gotten air mattresses for everybody to sleep on because all the furniture was still in New York being staged in the house. I'm not exactly sure what time it was. I woke up to go to the bathroom, got a drink, and I lay back down, and just as I'm getting ready to go to sleep, I get like this rumble. It felt like the airbed was vibrating. It was like a low bass, and I think what was magnifying it was the air mattress. Got up, I looked around, and I was listening, see if the air conditioning had kicked on, or if, something mechanical in the house. A couple minutes go by, and I lay back down, and just as I'm drifting off to bed again, it does it again. And it does it like 3 or 4 more times until it's almost dawn. So I didn't really get a whole lot of sleep that night. And so I get the next morning, I'm talking to Mom, and they're laughing, ghosts in the house and this and that. And I told them about it, and she goes, well, you walked around a lot last night. And I'm like, no, once I woke up, I pretty much just sit there on the side of the bed. Her bedroom is on the first floor, but it's a separate off to the side of the house. The 2-story isn't directly over her part of the cabin. And she said it sounded like somebody was walking on the roof at night. Probably about the same time all this stuff was going on with me. I keep wanting to talk to her about it, but every time I call, I'm not sure if I, figure out some way to, ask her.
Allan, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing good. So you had an encounter that most people don't ever describe it as, which is a Yucca Man encounter. It's basically a 7 to 8 foot tall Bigfoot, but people call him a Yucca Man. And maybe you could detail as to why you call it the Yucca Man as you go through your story. But dude, what happened here? I mean, what'd you see? What happened?
Well, I was stationed in 29 Palms. I was in the Marines, and this was back in 93. And right there around 29 Palms, you have the Joshua Tree National Monument. And just getting there, I like to get out and drive. And so I was out exploring the park, and I found this one nice little campground that I go out there and have a couple beers and just kind of taking the scenery. Well, after being there a couple months, I met a gal, and that was kind of our thing, to go out to the campground and, we'll take care of business. And we'd gone out for, I don't know, 5-6 months, and we'd gotten into a pretty big fight, and she decided she was going to go back to Louisiana, and she was leaving in like a week, and she'd call me and she'd want to have one little last get together. And so we decided to go back out to our campground. We were out there, and it started getting a little chilly in the bed of the truck. So we got in the cab and kept going. And I had started the truck to get the heater to warm up. And it was about 15, 20 minutes later. Something almost feels like it bumps the side of my truck. And she's like, what was that? You know, the windows are kind of foggy. And we look around, and it was not quite a full moon, but it was bright enough to see like a shadow behind the truck. So she starts screaming. I jump over into behind the steering wheel, throw it in reverse and back out real hard and turn the lights on. Well, you can see something kind of like walking around in the dust that I kicked up, you know, doing a reverse burnout. And she starts screaming that there's somebody on the side of the truck. So I drop her down in the first gear and take off out of there. And the truck's kind of kicking sideways, and I feel something hit the back of the truck, the back of the bed. And kind of shocks the truck. I just keep going and get on down the road. Well, I get onto the pavement and down to the highway. We stop. And she's still kind of freaked out. I'm freaked out. We get dressed, and I walk around to check the back of the truck, and the side of the taillight bezel is kind of smashed in, and the taillight's broken. And I'm thinking, oh crap, I'm going to get a ticket on the way into base. And sure enough, I get stopped by the 29 Palms police, get a ticket, and then I get a ticket at the gate for it. But yeah, for height wise and anything else, I couldn't really tell you. She saw it. She says it was as tall as the cab. So I'm going to say at least 6.5, maybe 7 feet tall. And, you know, other than the broken taillight, you know, that's really all the damage it did to the truck. It was probably about a week later she left, you know, and I was in the shop fixing the taillight on the bedside and doing some body work on it and everything else to get the light back in it. And one of the sheet metal guys I worked with asked me, you know, what had happened. And, you know, I told him exactly what I just told you. And he's like, yeah. He says, he's heard of the same thing happening out there. And he's like, yeah, you know, don't go screwing around in the Joshua Tree Park or the Yucca Man to get you. And that's all I could really get out of him. And he wouldn't really talk about it anymore. And there's a couple other people there that I had said something about it, and they wouldn't say anything. So yeah, I heard on Shannon's Into the Fray a couple weeks ago, one of her insiders, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I mean, so the Yucca Man, and I'm assuming,
Yucca.
I'm assuming that's a regional name for it, right?
Yeah, it's a yucca is a type of cactus that grows out here in the Southwest, and there's a lot of that, you know, yucca and Joshua tree there in the monument.
Okay, so I mean, this has to be an adrenaline-filled moment. Did you ever venture to go back out that way?
Yes, I did. I went out there it was probably 2 days later. And when I went out there, I could see where I had backed out of where we were parked. Because it was a gravel parking lot, or hard dirt. And when I took off going forward, I could see where I was, you know, burning out basically. And when it swung around and hit, whatever it was, you can see the slight jog in the track of, you know, like sideswiping something. I didn't see any footprints or anything like that. Like I said, it was pretty hard ground. But
So, I mean, when you say you saw you sideswiping something, are you talking about like in the gravel, you saw your tires come to abrupt stop, or that like you could see that it hit something that was there?
Well, it was wide open, and it'd be like just a slight squiggle in the burnout. Of like the truck getting knocked sideways a little bit, kind of like the best way I can explain it.
Okay.
Almost like if you're turning and you hit like the curb, like if you hit a curb and then it would jostle you sideways a little bit.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I wonder. I mean, the guy who said you better watch out for, or the Yucca Man will get you. I wonder what he knew. And you said that other people had a hard time talking about it. Have you ever, I don't know, done some looking into it? Is this like a common thing that people are experiencing in that area?
Possibly. Like I said, there's a couple locals that I got kind of be friends with, and anytime I would talk about it, they get kind of hush hush and no, that's nothing kind of thing. And because I don't know, if you've ever been out to 29 Palms, it's kind of a really different place. There's a lot of abandoned houses out there. Kind of the story I got was back when they were trying to populate California more, the government would basically give you so many acres to move to California, is kind of the story I got. So people would go out there, they build a house, but there's no water. So it's there's a lot of strange people out there.
I'm sure. So, all right. So you guys are in the vehicle, and this thing, it remind me, did this thing, it hit the side of your vehicle and that's how you knew it was there?
Yeah. It's like somebody walked up and kind of bumped into the side of the truck. And that's when she said, "Hey, there's somebody out there," and that's because they had, one of the problems there with the monument was meth labs at the time. And I didn't find this out until like a month later that, it was a problem out there. But I guess it was kind of like Breaking Bad. People would go out there and set up meth labs and cook. And it was like a year-round raids they do in the monument to, clean the meth labs up. And I don't know if she knew something about that and thought somebody was trying to break into the truck or rob us or what it was. But, it got us going enough we wanted to get the hell out of there.
And when you inspected the truck and everything, did you ever happen to see like a handprint or anything, a hair, or was it just the damage to the truck that you saw?
It was just didn't see any kind of handprints or anything. It was more or less just a shallow enough a dent that it been in the taillight bezel enough to break the lens. It was about 2 hours worth of body work, and I had it fixed.
Okay. And was this like a military vehicle? Is that why you were going to get in trouble?
No, it was my personal vehicle.
Oh, okay. So why would you get in trouble for having it damaged?
The regulations on base are really strict about all the working equipment on your vehicle. It's just like anything out. If you got a busted headlight or tail light, you can get a fix-it ticket. And that's kind of what I got. Okay.
Gotcha. Dude, that's crazy. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared were you in that moment? I mean, I'm assuming you didn't really quite understand what was going on in the moment. But I mean, I would have been on a scale of 1 to 10, 11. What were you?
Oh, probably about that, but I was more pissed off that somebody was slapping my truck. That was my baby. And like somebody, messing with me or, I was kind of pissed off that somebody hit the truck and interrupted us. But, the more I look back at it, it was probably about a 10 or 11.
Wow, man. So when you went back up there, you looked around and everything, you saw the marks from your truck, but you didn't see any footprints, right?
No.
Well, that's interesting, man. That really is an interesting story. There's not much you can say about this thing coming up on you and slapping the side of the truck, or at least bumping into it. Just definitely a freaky experience, man. What do you think it is? What do you think these things are, man?
I think it's just more or less a different version of the Bigfoot. the Sasquatch. It's, it could be regional, kind of like the other experience I told you about in Virginia. I think it's just more or less one that lives out in the high desert.
Yeah. Now, why don't you share that other experience in Virginia that happened in Virginia?
Okay. This was last year in June. Like I told you in the email, I had I call them my Marine Corps parents. They're two civil servants that were retired Marines that worked there at 29 Palms, and they kind of took me under their wing, kind of thing. Well, Dad had gotten in a car accident and was killed, and I'd heard about it, and I want to tell you something else about that later on. I'd heard about it, and so I got on a plane and flew right out to Richmond, and they had just moved from mid-state New York down to Virginia to be closer to their son and granddaughters. And it's a beautiful place. It was about 40 minutes outside of Richmond, out in the middle. I mean, I've never seen so many damn trees. And it was a beautiful horse property. I think it was almost 100 acres. So it was huge. And they had horse trails cut all over the place on it. And I got there, and they needed to go into the hospital and take care of some stuff because one of the granddaughters was hurt pretty bad in the wreck as well, and she was still in the hospital. So they were like, well, I'm going to stay here. They had a little UTV, and they're like, go ride the trails, whatever, explore. And I'm like, okay. And I jumped in the UTV, and I'm out on one of the trails, and my phone rings. And it was my wife checking in, and I was really surprised that I had good reception because at the cabin I had none. And now I'm a roamer when I talk on the phone. So I was walking around the trail, and the bugs were buzzing, and had a little bit of a breeze going. And I was telling my wife, about the signal and this and that. And I noticed that it had gotten quiet, and the breeze had kind of halted. And I didn't smell anything except for there was the fresh grass that they had mowed the day before on the trail. And so I talked to my wife, 10, 15 minutes possibly. And I'm getting ready to hang up, and the breeze comes back up. And I'm like, well, I'm glad the breeze started, blowing again, because I was sweating my balls off. And get back to the house, and they get back, and we have dinner and have a couple beers and whatever. Go to bed. Well, this cabin, it was built back in the 40s, 40, 42, 43, I can't. And it was a 2-story cabin. And we went to bed, and they had just gotten air mattresses for everybody to sleep on because all the furniture was still in New York being staged in the house. And go to bed, and I'm not exactly sure what time it was. I woke up to go to the bathroom, got a drink, and I lay back down, and just as I'm getting ready to go to sleep, I get this rumble. I don't know how to explain it. It felt like the airbed was vibrating, and it woke me up, because it was like a boom, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Excuse me. Got up, I looked around, and I was listening, see if the air conditioning had kicked on, or if, something mechanical in the house. And so a couple minutes go back by, and I lay back down, and just as I'm drifting off to bed again, it does it again. And it does it 3 or 4 more times until it's almost dawn. And so I didn't really get a whole lot of sleep that night. And so I get the next morning, I'm talking to Mom, and they're laughing, ghosts in the house and this and that. And I told them about it, and She goes, well, you walked around a lot last night. And I'm like, no, once I woke up, I pretty much just sit there on the side of the bed. And why she thought I was walking around is her bedroom is on the first floor, but it's a separate off to the side of the house. The 2-story isn't directly over her part of the cabin. And she said it sounded like somebody was walking on the roof at night. Probably about the same time all this stuff was going on with me. And, I was thinking, Dad, I found out later that he had set up a couple of trail cams out on the property, and he had always talked about Bigfoot. And that kind of got me thinking about it after I left. And somebody was talking about infrasound. I forget which episode it was. It was with Wes. I was listening to one of his, and I'm not wondering if it was something like that, and they were checking me out because I was a new person on the property. Because they'd been up there a couple of weeks and cleaning the cabin out. Said it had been vacant for, I think Mom had said, for 10 years. So they'd been up there for a couple of weeks cleaning it up prior to moving down from New York. But didn't really say too much more about, Bigfoot with, to them, because I got 3 young granddaughters, and, it didn't think, scare them or anything.
With that whole story, do you lean towards the infrasound side of things, or what? I mean, when that sound that you heard, I mean, were you feeling that physically, or was it just a sound that you heard?
No, I was feeling it. It was just like a low, it was like a low bass, and I think what was magnifying it was the air mattress. I don't know. It was a low rumble. And like I said, I checked around, like I said, I checked for, listen for air conditioner kicking on, a ceiling fan downstairs, out of, all different things. But it only happened that one night. And because I was there for a week.
So, I mean, I think it was Mom that said that it sounded like somebody was walking on the roof, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm assuming that's something that's not normal. Does she find that off as well?
Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, they had been there for 3 weeks cleaning up the place. They had just moved in to the cabin. They had been in the cabin for 3 days when Rex had gotten into the accident. And they had been staying in their son's cabin with him until they got ready to move in. So that was really only like their first 4 or 5 nights in, actually staying in the cabin. But I keep wanting to talk to her about it, but every time I call, I'm not sure if I, see if anything else has gone on. Figure out some way to, ask her.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very interested to hear if there was something else that happened since then. But what you just said, that you're kind of, you don't know how to ask her. What about it makes it feel awkward to ask her? I mean, just to bring up the whole idea of Bigfoot, or, asking her, is there something spooky going on the property? Is it just awkward?
Yeah, kind of. I've been through a lot of little different experiences, and I've always gotten, kind of, ripped on for, a lot of it. And it was just, anytime I, want to talk about it, I got to think, who am I going to tell this to, until, actually my dad passed away 3 years ago. Up until then, I kind of kept a lot of it to myself. And then, some other stuff happened, and I'm like, I started listening to a lot of your guys' podcasts. And I'm like, like I told you in the email, when you talk to Amy, it just, I'm like, well, hell, I might start, getting some of it out, kind of thing.
The idea of getting it out and stuff. I mean, Do you think that that's, helpful for you to, make sense of it in your mind or just be able to tell somebody? Because for me, like I said it before on the show, if something like this happened to me, I'm a chatty person. I just talk about it. I don't care what people think, but I'm not normal. So, but I know what episode you're talking about with Amy, and we were talking about how, just talking about this stuff helps people just get it off their chest. It sounds like this is something that you really don't talk a whole lot about to people.
No. Like I said, something I want to get to too is what kind of got me thinking about this a lot more was how my dad had passed away. And Rex's death, or my other dad, Rex, Marine Corps dad's death. I always had the sense that I needed to call him, when my dad passed away, I'd gotten a call that morning from my best friend that his dad had just passed away. And I'm like, holy crap. And I didn't even know Don was sick. And that's when my buddy told me about everything, and that he had kind of hid his illness from his family, and they didn't find out till like the last week of his life,
Wow.
And I got to thinking about that, and my dad had a few health issues, and, I need to call him and, kind of tell him, if there's something going on, you need to tell us, us kids and everything. And I got home, usual thing, got busy, picked up my daughter from school, babysitter, and got dinner going and, all this stuff. And next thing I know, it's 8:00 at night. And I'm like, well, shit, I can't call Dad now. He's in bed by now. And I had already made plans to go back to Houston with my buddy for his dad's funeral. And so I was going to take my daughter over to my sister's, spend the night with her cousin. And I was on my way over there, and my phone rings, and it was my dad's phone number on my phone. Well, I answered, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, what's up, man?" It was my mom, and she was crying, and the paramedics had just finished loading him up and taking him to the mortuary, and she had told me that he had passed away in his sleep that night. And it's like, man, I really felt, I felt this strong urge that I should have called him the night before, because I was basically going to chew him out, make sure, nothing was going on and everything was okay and that kind of thing. Well, 2 years later, I kept getting this feeling that I needed to call my Marine Corps dad. I was like, man, I need to talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a while. And it kept weighing on me for some reason. And so I'm headed home from work one day, and I'm like, screw it, I'm going to call. I call, and it goes straight to voicemail. I'm like, okay. Well, I wait 15, 20 minutes more, and then I call again. I figure he was on his phone talking to somebody else or something, And his son answers, my little brother. And the same thing as my mom. He's choked up trying to keep. And he's like, yeah, we just lost him. He died on the way to the hospital from the car accident. That was kind of, I got to think back about a lot of other little different things that had happened, throughout. And I'm like, wow, maybe I have been experiencing a lot of this crazy shit too.
That's rough, man. That's rough. I just, it's one of those things where like you had that inner voice, right, to call and you didn't, and now I'm sure you wish it did, right?
Oh yeah. Every time I tell it, I get, that's kind of my point. If anybody out there listening to this, if you get any of that kind of thought or notion, don't take the time to call and at least talk to them.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things where sometimes when you have that inner voice speaking to you, it's best just to follow it, even if you feel like it's dumb. It's rather look dumb than feel sorry later. And I feel for you, man. I do. I feel for you. That's a hard situation to go through.
But yeah, it's with that, and then going back, to Richmond and all that stuff, and it's just, like, man, you could have just called me and asked me to come visit you, it's kind of thing. But, I'm joking, lighting it up, but it's still kind of rough.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. I mean,
sorry to get away from the other stuff, but that's just something I wanted to blend into this.
I understand. When you go through stuff like that, it gives you another perspective, and sometimes you feel like you just need to warn other people, and so that's what I think it's fine. But with these things that you've experienced and stuff, do you think that the cabin had, I don't know, Bigfoot activity, or do you think it was more paranormal, where like maybe like haunting activity with the walking on the roof, things like that? I mean, I don't know how stable the cabin is, but I mean, could it support a 400, 500, 600 pound creature?
I don't know. That was one of the things I thought about, because they were always, Mom joked about the ghost, and everybody else was joking about a ghost, and I don't know if that's something that got put into my head but like I said, just the whole, I'm just wondering if it was more or less a kind of a smaller one, maybe a juvenile or something, because what's got me really thinking about this was that, it was 4 days later, my little brother's youngest daughter was wanting to help me with some chores around the ranch there, and she wanted to go for a ride in the UTV, and like, okay, come on, I found this really cool trail, and I'd just gone up it a couple days prior, and we're up in there, and I hadn't really heard about trees, the structures, until, I don't know, a couple months ago. The trail was blocked with 2 cross trees, and she's like, was that there before? And I'm like, no. And so I got out, and they're probably 5-6 inches in diameter, and I got them out of the trail, and we kept going a little further, and then we came across one where there was 3 trees stuck leaning across the trail. And these, I couldn't move. I mean, they were, to get them out of the way, you would have to have had a chainsaw, and, just with the way they were wedged in. And I'm like, okay, we're standing up there looking at them. And the same thing, like when I told you it got quiet a couple days before, the exact same thing happened then. And I don't know if it was because Sarah was with me. She was 7 at the time. I just got this real overwhelming urge that, we need to get the hell out of there. And so I backed up, because it's a fairly narrow trail, and I backed the UTV up, to a spot where I get turned around, and we pretty much just got the hell out of there. And so I don't know if that was a marking, like, hey, don't come this way, or, because I'd only been up the trail a couple days before.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to tree structures, I do think that there's something to them. I don't think that everything that people see that looks like a quote-unquote tree structure means that it was made by a Bigfoot, but I definitely think that there is something to it. When you were there and it got quiet, how did she feel sitting there? I mean, did she say anything?
She was scared.
Yeah,
she was scared. I could tell that look on her face. She was scared. And I was like, like I said, I just got this feeling like, we need to get out of here. And
yeah, that's probably best. I mean, if those things weren't there before and they were there then, something put them there. They didn't just fall like that. Especially, you see 2, you move them, keep going. You see 3. I mean, and you said that the one that was made out of 3, you couldn't move, right? They were too big.
No, and I didn't really look at the ends of them. I mean, it was like they were underneath the other limbs, like they had taken it and almost like you're shooting with a cue stick, and you drop back and you put it underneath the limbs and then put it down to the ground. So it was like they were shoved up through the other limbs of the trees on the other side of the trail. And this was a fairly dense forest area we were riding through. A lot of old growth pine, and I did see some other, like some oaks and stuff, but it was a lot of pine in that area. And, that's what got me. That's when I wrote you, is because I had heard somebody talking about some of the tree structures. I'm like, holy, that's kind of like what I ran into in Virginia. And I said, I was only there for a week.
Yeah. I mean, just the idea that those things weren't there, then they were somewhere so big that you couldn't move. It definitely seems like that's a situation where it could be Bigfoot activity. And like I said, I think that your best bet was just to get out of there, because they put them there for a reason, and people speculate as to what they mean. I think they can mean several different things. Maybe it is, don't come down here, especially if it's like a trail. Maybe it's, this is our area, stay out of it. Sometimes I wonder if it's directional stuff where they are more of a communication tool for each other. Hey, this is our area. You guys stay on that side. We stay on this side, or there's food or water this direction. You never know. I mean, that's what Boy Scouts do. Boy Scouts are taught to make tree structures that, and they are shaped in different ways, and it means different things. Native Americans did the same thing. Native Americans would make trees grow certain ways so that they knew what was up. So like they would actually take a tree when it's young and pull it down and tie it down so it would grow sideways. And once it grew sideways, they would release it, and then the top half would start growing up again. So it was like a zigzag shape. And every once in a while, you can still find those trees around and stuff. There's actually one maybe an hour from me, right off a major highway, that my buddy that I used to go hiking with sent me a picture of. And I want to get up there and just kind of take a picture of it and stuff for myself, because, I mean, you don't see those very often, but they're clearly markers for, the Native Americans and what they did and stuff. It was just like communication, and so it just definitely makes you wonder if that's what these things are doing, whether it's communication with each other, or if they think that they're communicating with us, saying, this is our area, stay out. And that's why I think it's best that you got out of there, because you didn't get the message clearly. And so if you would have hung out more.
He's out here cruising around again, drinking his beer in the UTV, hey.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and who knows what happens if you keep, toying with them. I mean, they are definitely temperamental creatures. Whatever they are, they're definitely temperamental. And I know there's people that think that, they're not that temperamental and, whatever. But I've heard enough stories that, they're temperamental. Even with the story that you first shared with us. I mean, there was no need for it to come up and bump against your truck and present itself to you. It was being aggressive. You know what I mean? Like these things.
No, but like I was also thinking later on, what if we had still been in the back of the truck and, as distracted as we were, what else? What other things could have happened? Wonder if he's coming up there because a little bit of jungle love going on, and he wants to get in on the action kind of thing, or if we'd still been there, if I'd be talking to you right now, kind of thing.
Right. Jungle love. Oh man, but I'll tell you, like that's exactly it. I mean, he might have been coming in to be a peeping Tom, or he might have been frustrated that you went in the truck. Who knows? But
yeah. You're interrupting my show, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yo, get back out here in the open. But, it definitely was an act of aggression. It may not be, busting your window out, grab you out and bite your neck off, but it was an act of aggression. And these things can be temperamental. And if you're intruding in on their area and they feel like they gave you an adequate warning to not be there, you don't know what could happen at that point, So I definitely think you did the right thing about getting out.
And I don't know, like I said, I haven't done any more research into it now that since I've thought about it. I never could get any real information out of anybody there at the time. So I'm wondering if there, had been some, bad shit go down out there, and people don't really, locals don't talk about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one of the things with the locals, man. And I don't get it. I just don't get why people wouldn't talk about this, but locals not talking about it, especially like down south and stuff. I mean, you're talking about the Virginia area. I mean, the people, they just, they keep to themselves. They're quiet. I have a guy coming on here that's going to be talking about, actually, I think it's the next interview I'm doing. He's going to be talking about, he's a insurance salesman in West Virginia, and he got to know these people in West Virginia, and they got comfortable with him, and they started sharing with him their stories of encounters of these creatures in West Virginia. And so, it's just one of those things that, like, I mean, these people aren't knocking down the door to, report it to the BFRO or, emailing me to be on the show to share their story. They just keep to themselves. They know what happened, and that's that. I mean, they don't really want to talk about it. It's interesting.
Yeah. And, it's, the reason I called you, what's you, because you're right there in Pennsylvania. I don't think you're any more than a couple hours from where I was at, when this stuff happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, one of the other things, Mom had said to me that she did English horse riding, where they jump all the fences and that kind of stuff. So she had two. They were high strung horses. Pretty fidgety. Nervous kind of. And she said the funny thing was, as soon as they moved the horses down to Virginia, that they were calmed down. Because when they were up in New York, she would almost have to go out and get them out of the barns in the morning. Get them to get out and graze. And just no, they'll even stay out at night up there now. I don't know if it's something different. I don't know. It's I've speculated a couple different things about it in my own head, but I'm just wondering if they weren't dealing with something up in New York as well. Because they were, like I said, they were out. I don't know if are you kind of familiar with the Watkins Glen area?
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with it as in like geographically and stuff, but I've heard of it. I know it's not too far.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty well heavily forested, about like there in Richmond. But I know Dad, he had an interest in some of this stuff, I don't know if that's why he was setting up the trail cams, when he did, but just a lot of weird, different coincidences all happening at the same time.
I mean, maybe he did have a suspicion that something was going on. Maybe that's why he was setting up the trail cams. I mean, you're never going to know, but just judging by the things that you've experienced, your limited time there, it's definitely, it's definitely a plausibility. So, but man, Allan, I tell you, man, thanks for coming on and sharing these stories, man. I know in the middle of it, it was kind of a more of a deeper moment for you, but it's one of those things, man. You go through life, you handle things the best you can, and you can't change what happened and stuff. But I definitely think that I just encourage you to not beat yourself up about it too much.
Yeah, it's just one of the best. Let people know if you get that feeling, act on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't even worry about looking stupid or something. Like I said, it's better to look stupid than sorry. Well, Allan, I appreciate you coming on and sharing, man. Oh, anytime. Like I said, I might send you a few more emails on some other stuff, but kind of let this go through and go from there. Well, that's the show, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please share the show around social media. I don't care how you share it, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email. If you know somebody that you think would enjoy this show, please share it with them, because that's the best thing you can do to help support the show and help it grow towards the future. And until next week, friends, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching The Confessionals on YouTube. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, and hit the like button. That would be a great help to me. And if you want more of The Confessionals on a weekly basis, every Thursday I come out with a special show just for members on my website. So if you want to check that out, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today. And every Thursday, you'll get a new show, and you can binge on previous shows, which there's almost 100 of them. So if you love the show, go ahead and check it out. But thank you very much for being here on YouTube and checking out the channel.